You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Data Center Therapy, a podcast from Ivoxy Consulting that talks all things IT and home IT, as we'll see, with a healthy dose of empathy. I'm your host, Matt Yette, and alongside me is my co-host, Mr. Matt Cozzolino.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. In each episode, we dive into the wide range of technologies that make up this beautiful sandbox called IT that we all play in. We share our hopes and dreams, opinions both positive and critical alike, all with a touch of empathy, because at the end of the day, we all need a seat on that couch. Today, we're joined by co-worker, colleague, friend, special guest, pardon me, Kris Lamet. Kris, you've been on the show before, but it's been a bit of a while since we've seen you, so
it's been a while.
Happy to have your voice grace our airwaves.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, how have you been?
I've been well. I've been busy. Yeah.
And growing a beard also?
Yes. Yeah, the stay at home has definitely facilitated growing and letting everything expand, belly included. So, yes.
The trio formaggio of beards here on this episode.
Yeah, everyone's chiming in with a beard.
We're very hairy facially.
To any of our listeners or people who might be our customers who know, has anybody seen Doug Brown lately?
Does he have a beard too?
He's starting.
Ah.
He's showing.
There you go.
He's in the early stages, but we'll see where it goes.
Wow,
but he's gone from Littlefinger to I don't know, the Karkaroff from Harry Potter.
There you go.
Yeah, Kaz, what's new with you?
Ski patrol season right now, so that's taking up a ton of weekend time, but that's about the biggest of it right now for me.
You're able to leave your house. That is a very nice thought.
Yeah. Other than like going to the grocery store or Home Depot, yeah.
Right. And with ski patrol, you want your face covered anyway because of the cold.
Yeah, I guess.
Right? Yeah.
I do kind of feel like a astronaut or something up there because I got my jacket on, my ski pants, my face mask, my helmet, my goggles, so it's like everything's all 100% covered, so kind of
airtight.
Yep.
Well, okay, so we brought Kris in here. We're touching on, we're kind of revisiting a topic that is kind of a staple of the show, that we visited in a lot of different angles, and so we're kind of go back into home automation. Yes, it's one of our favorite things to talk about. It's still, I think, a very infant area of our industry. It's well, maybe we could say it's stuck around in a toddler phase, right? And it's just, you're just not sure what direction it's going to take in a lot of ways, and so there's hesitancy to invest in a certain technology. So we take our lumps along the way, and as IT guys, we're a little more tolerant of stuff maybe not working right away. I don't know if that's true.
Are we tolerant, or are we willing to just take on that risk of like, you know what, I'm going to have to own this and manage it and keep it working?
Yeah, and all the pressure that I have on me about that is all me, because my wife is great. She lets me go ahead, do your thing. It is the wife acceptance factor for me is through the roof. I have a lot of rope. Hopefully I don't find out where the end of it is. I feel like I have sometime. But Kris, what's your situation that's got you in this topic right now?
Sure. So I actually started at my last house, recently moved. So bought a new house back in November. Prior to that, I had my house all dialed in. It took me a while to get it all set up. So I started with the Samsung SmartThings. So it's a Z-Wave hub, and just off the shelf, it was a package that came with a handful of various sensors. So door open close sensors and key fob, a plug, motion sensors, all the things that kind of make up the basics of a home security system. So that was kind of the initial idea. I want a basic DIY home security, and then kind of started building out from there, and figuring out how different things plugged in, and then bolt on this, bolt on that, and ended up getting a pretty dialed in system. So now I've moved. And now I'm starting to get get ready to get things going in the new house. So I'm kind of dusting off the equipment, pulling it out of the boxes, and
Did you leave it there? Did you leave it in the house when you sold it?
so I sold the house as a smart house, and
This interests me as a real estate angle. I'm
Yeah.
curious if this is of value
No,
or
no,
if you-
don't do
When
it.
You pull out. Don't do it.
yeah, no, it's a pain in
I
the
would
butt.
assume the subset of potential buyers of a home that would enjoy a smart home are all the more likely to say, I want to do it my way anyway. And
Yeah.
so even then, it's not really a benefit.
Yeah,
Did that bear out?
yeah. So it's funny. We ended up we listed it as a smart home just to kind of it's an extra bullet item
differentiate.
to put on the thing, right? So so as we've talked through what does this actually look like, we ended up getting the little things to set on the counter. Hey, try out our smart home. Do this automation, and that did not work at all.
No one cares.
No, as simplistic as I made it, say this command. Nah, nope, didn't work.
Oh, it's Murphy's
So-
Law all the way. The
Yeah.
second hey, look at this cool thing that I just spent a week on. It works flawlessly. Try
Yep.
it out.
Yep,
Nope.
Oh.
Nope.
yep.
Oh, it's infuriating.
Oh yeah. So I ended up going down the path of I wanted smart lights, and there's a couple different ways of doing that. We can talk through some of that stuff. But I ended
Did
up
you switch the listing to say dumb home, by the way?
I did
after
not. I should have. It probably would have simplified things.
Actually, this thing's quite stupid. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Terribly dumb home. Just buy it. Fortunately, market demand, it went fast, despite that. So
Good.
yeah, exactly. So I ended up going the route of installing smart switches, smart dimmer switches in the house. So these are actually hardwired switches. So
I
they
think
plug
that's
into
the way
your.
to go instead of the lights, instead of the bulbs. Yeah.
I do too.
Way less expensive if
yeah.
you have decent lighting, right? If you've got can lights, if everything's a lamp, then you're kind of trading it off there. But
Yeah.
if you've got 7 or 8 lights on a single circuit, yeah.
Yep. So I ended up doing all Z-Wave dimmer switch lighting throughout the whole house. And yes, I left it all there. And then after I sold the house, the new owner called me and said, "Hey, I can't figure this stuff out. I don't want it. What can we do?" Like, man, I'll buy it from you. I'll buy all of that stuff from you because it is not cheap. So he ended up saying, "Hey, just come take the stuff out and you can have it." So I went over and replaced all of the $40 dimmer switches with the $3 just simple
How long
switch.
did that take you to do the whole house, rip it all out?
It took me a full evening to do it. I went over after work and we just busted it
Did you already
through.
have the circuit legs mapped out where you knew what breakers to throw, or were you doing this? Were you doing this live?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
No.
wow. Did you pull a permit for that, Kris?
Matt, of course I did. Of course.
Okay, okay, just checking.
Yeah.
He actually
No,
needed
so
more inside wiring like that.
No,
Yeah.
you don't. Not when you're a certified electrician like Kris, especially.
Sure. In a former life, I actually did some residential electrical work. Believe it or not.
You shouldn't have said that because your phone's gonna be ringing extra right now. By the way.
Yeah.
So I can write a statement of work to rewire some of the power for these cabinets, and you can just execute on that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, no problem. So anyway, I ended up getting a whole box of dimmer switches and brought them all back here, and it was pretty cool. My wife's like, I want to get involved. Don't show me how this stuff works. So I showed her how to wire in a single pole switch, and she went through and busted out all the single poles. So for the listeners at home that don't know electrical, single poles are the easy ones. It's a single light, single switch. The three-way lighting and four-way lighting, as you increase the number of light switches with the same set of lights, that's where the complexity starts coming on.
You got any 4-ways in the house?
This house, so I have a handful of three-way lights. There's some very odd rooms that have a single pole switch, which just makes no sense, and it's frustrating, and I'll have to go back and do some electrical to fix that. But I don't have any 4-way switches. At least I don't think I do. I have one switch that has completely boggled me, and I don't know what is going on. So in electrical talk, you've got line and load, and I can't find load. How does that work?
And with those 3 or 4 ways, you've also got the travelers.
The traveler.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. All I can find are my travelers. So Yeah, weird stuff. Something is definitely odd in
I'm
in
sure
this.
it's not behind the drywall sparking and we're just waiting to start a fire either.
Entirely possible.
I'm just messing with you.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think you ran into the same kind of thing I did, where the power came into to the top, to the light. That's where I got my power from, and then
Yeah.
there's not enough
It
wires
sent it
going
back down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to do something like that.
My mother and father-in-law, they live yacht away. Like I could throw a baseball and easily put it through their front window if I was so inclined, which is great. They built on our street, and they're putting on a back, you want to call it sunroom, like an enclosed porch kind of thing. So I was over there helping them do some electrical. Just the wires are run. We're just landing outlets and switches. And I'm like, oh, you got any wire nuts? And he goes, yeah, I'll be right back. And he comes in with this tub of, I'd never seen them before. They're three-way coupler handoff. So where you have
Are
to
they
bring
like the crimp-on one?
no, they're push in.
Oh, I love
Okay.
pushing.
So they're like orange and clear. You strip a half inch of the sheathing off, and you push them in. And so if you've got a traveling wire, like the load coming or the hot coming through, and you need to join it and pass it on to the next in series, but you also need to break off a leg for that outlet in that box or switch in that box. That's your third hole. So they're probably 5/8, 3/4 of an inch wide. No, if that, like 5/8 of an inch, and 5/8 square, and they're just they push. You can pull it back out. It does not self crimp. It does not damage or blow itself up if you want, which is kind of nice. But it also gives you the, is this really completely secure? Because
Not entirely
but
sure
it's pretty
'cause it
good.
disconnects, yeah.
Pretty good. A lot better than wire nuts. I liked it. I'd never seen it before.
Nice.
Now,
I think
welcome
I
back to Electrical Center Therapy Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Today's dose of 110.
So, we're getting a lot of stuff to go off of there. That's cool. So I'll just anecdotally put my very admittedly minor Z-Wave experience, and I'm not using something like a Smart Things, and maybe going prepackaged for Z-Wave is probably the best way to get a working setup. But I use Home Assistant. We've talked about it, and Home Assistant, to their credit, and also talk about shaking the snow globe every month or so. They've jumped from the way that they talk to Z-Wave a lot.
That's changed quite a bit.
But I also, so the interface and how you get at it, the visibility has not always been great. But I have that AO Tech Z-Wave stick, probably the same one you have, Kris. So
Same one I've got.
Probably.
Yeah. And the only thing I have from a Z-Wave standpoint is battery powered, which from what I read, and again, I got to think I'm pretty good at finding out about stuff and researching stuff in this realm after this many years, and I still feel like Z-Wave is like the secret handshake that certain people know and they're not letting people in. Apparently battery devices can take up to like 4 hours to complete their check-in process. I'm like, this is not for me. This is not what, like, I'm like, Windows progress, freaking reboot it. It's not, it's stuck. And so
You need to see some movement on it. You need to actually
yeah.
get some data out. Yeah.
And the problem too is my server, my rack is in my shop garage. And so when I set these little door sensors up, I go close to the front corner of my family room, which is like proximity-wise pretty close. If I go too far away, it won't work. I think that it's very sensitive upon setup that it has a nice strong communication path to the stick.
For that first learning before it starts to build its little mesh thing. Yeah.
Yes, but again, there's not a whole lot of, there's no mesh when it comes to battery. Battery
Right.
talks to either the stick or the closest thing, and that's it. It doesn't pass it on.
It doesn't act as a repeater, but it'll talk to a
correct.
repeater node. Yeah.
Correct. So I don't know. All of it felt very cross your fingers and pray, and so obviously, Kris, you've had much more success than that.
Yeah, for the most part. As it stands, I have one switch that's being stubborn that happens to be the closest to my hub that doesn't want to recognize. So Z-Wave.
Are you still using Smart Things for it? Is that
I
still
am.
your hub for it? Okay.
So yeah. So after getting everything back, backing up. sold the house, and all the stuff went with the house. SmartThings hub included.
You got it back.
All my cameras and everything went. So after I got it back, it changed my plans. My plan was to come here, and I was gonna take your guys' advice, and I was gonna go down the Home Assistant route and start building it out. And then I got my stuff back. I'm like, man, all this stuff just works. So do I really want to start from scratch on this? So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I've got what was working, and as I continue to bolt things back together, as I find them in the boxes, I have the option of connect it with my existing stuff or do something new. So I'm super interested in going the Home Assistant route, but I don't know that I'm totally sold on the complexity of it at this point.
Are you repairing and relearning everything, or is everything still set up from a Z-Wave mesh point of view?
So it's all had to retrain itself. So I've had to repair the Z-Wave network so that it finds. So as you mentioned, it's got the mesh. So it establishes its mesh neighbors and who it's talking to. So yeah, I had to go rebuild that as I repurposed things. So I'd put a new or one of the switches into the kitchen, and it registers back patio kind of a deal. So it was all repurposed, so I have to go, reprogram everything and figure out which room everything's associated with. But no connection issues.
Do you think if you run, let's like that switch, continues to give you problems with SmartThings? Okay, do you find it to be limited in your ability to troubleshoot? Is it because of its simplicity, because of it should just work? Are you boxed out of really getting under the covers with that? And I don't know. That's a true question.
Samsung opens up some tools that makes things a little bit easier. Through the hub itself, there's a repair option. That's about as deep as you can go.
I think that's a Z-Wave protocol thing, though.
That's a Z-Wave operation.
Yeah. But as far as access to those controls, actually, Samsung has been changing all of their apps and everything recently. So now they're in kind of a crossover phase from old to new. So I don't know.
So here's my thing. We talked about it before, but very different. But I was HomeKit all the way, right? Mm-hmm. And that certainly is if it ain't working, oh well. There's no log on status changes. There's no why did this automation fire. There are some third-party apps on your iPhone that try to get around that and do some things, but it's very much just what I can tell, like an Avahi/MDNS blast. And whoever hears it. Whoever doesn't, oh well. And that's that. It's very stateless like that, So from that standpoint, I felt out of control. And I was willing to put up with it because, for the most part, it just worked. But anytime you wanted to step... Well, so funny thing is, I still use HomeKit.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi/HomeKit. Mm-hmm. But my Home Assistant hub or Home Assistant machine is the HomeKit controller.
Right.
It's the base. Okay. It is the... people look at HomeKit. There's HomeKit or Home Assistant is your stateful tracking of your assets.
It collects everything.
And it can also do automation. I actually don't use it for automation. I use Node-RED for automation.
Just the clearinghouse for all of the data
It controls a Home Assistant assets basically that then talk via HomeKit, which is nice. And you'd think that might break in a million ways, but it's quite reliable. But I found once I got comfortable with Node-RED, and I have been before I even did HA stuff. It's enormously powerful and fun and cool, and you could really do almost anything you want.
The only thing I want out of Node-RED is a little bit more copy-paste. Like I want to copy this node and paste it again.
You can.
Okay. Then whatever. It's not working for me. But.
You can. My beef is it is annoying to log from Node-RED.
True that.
There is no this happened then, and so what I had to do is I have to set up a syslog node to point to a syslog server, and it's just that's kind of annoying because something so programmatic, you think there is this debug window there is a debug window, right? But if you're not looking at it and it doesn't write to a file, and I'm like that should be and it's not. But I think once you get a taste of that customization, Kris, and you have some, at first you're like, oh my God, what is this? And I'm happy to walk you through my page too. It's awesome. My website, I use it for doing all notification stuff, and I don't touch it. 3 years I haven't touched it. It works.
So we had talked a little bit about that the other day, Kris. I was asking you about that, and I had an aha moment, and then we talked about it. So my thought with that is, on one hand, automate everything. Let me suck everything in and run all of my own automations. On the other hand, we were talking about, like, here's this application. Let me build a scene inside of the application that can touch all of the buttons and widgets and whatnot that it'll do, and then I just have to go call that scene, which gives you some portability when you're out of the box software, out of the box software, out of the box software. And then I came back to the here's the thing, and it's what happens when you want to do this signal from this one environment and this signal from this other environment, right? When you want to trigger on two different things that aren't in the same ecosystem and have them be an and, how do you handle that kind of a integration between the two types of things, right?
That's so, Home Assistant bridges all of that too.
Mm-hmm.
I've done all that through If This The Matt. That's been my, and there's a couple other tools I've used, but yeah.
I'm making a face.
You are making a face. It's worked for me, but shoot it down. I know that you can do a lot of that stuff with Node-RED, and I think that's so.
There, in my opinion, from my experience and then reading after I said no, is speed. Is customization, right? You have what they have up there. You might have to pay. I don't know. And the ability, while your internet goes down, forget your automations. Bye.
A big one for me was that.
Big one for me.
I want this all to work regardless. Yeah.
Big one. And Z-Wave is a good way to do all that. That's a great technology to use for local control. But ultimately, even if it's Z-Wave,
that's just a communication protocol.
It's right. It depends on how the manufacturer says, how am I going to get, where do you tell me how to make an instruction? And then I use that protocol to send the instruction. If that all has to go through the cloud too, which I don't know if SmartThings does. I suspect it probably does. I suspect if you unplug your WAN port,
they were one of the ones that had good offline usability. They were one of the ones that did that.
That's important to me. Like, so Ecobee, right? I have a smart thermostat. There are two means for Home Assistant to, this is what I'm saying about different environments, Matt. There are two ways to talk to Ecobee via Home Assistant. Being that Ecobee is a HomeKit compliant product, and HomeKit, one of the special things is everything has to be local. You can do whatever you want, but via HomeKit, it's all local control, and therefore they don't sniff all your data, all this stuff. I can add it as a HomeKit device, or I can add it via Ecobee's API, which goes through their website, right? And so
you don't do that.
That's not so desirable, right? Right. Now I can always walk over to the thermostat and do whatever I want, but it's kind of cool too to have my automation still work even if the internet goes out. So local control for me is a massive must.
So I feel you a little bit, Yeti. The last place I was at had a handful of switches. I didn't put them in. The guy that owned the place did. He moved out, and I did the same kind of thing where let me deploy Node-RED, let me get this Z-Wave stick connected up to it because they were all Z-Wave connected to the same thing as SmartThings. So I just turned that off, set it in the corner. And that Z-Wave integration was bad. This place, I had kind of restarted everything because I went through a similar thing. Right about the same time Kris got his place, I bought a new place as well. And so I look at Home Assistant and, okay, how do I set up my Z-Wave stuff? And they've migrated it from this plugin straight into Home Assistant to now here's this separate thing, this Z-Wave JS, which has got a much better UI. You can see the state
They're developing
of all the
it
components.
Like crazy too.
It's so much better. I mean, it's got the button you can like show me the map of the environment, what nodes are peered to the other nodes to. Right?
And admittedly, my trial run with Z-Wave is a couple of battery-powered door window sensors. It's probably not something that someone would say that's a fantastic way to demonstrate how good Z-Wave is.
Right.
In fairness.
Right. I mean,
so you liking that?
I'm really liking that, but I'm personally kind of in the same spot that you are, where I've only got the two door locks and the plug-in outlet for my desk lamp is really the only Z-Wave components I'm running. everything else for switching, because I had the opportunity to do a whole new environment, I went with Lutron Cassetta for the whole
Mhm.
everything, which on one hand has a hub, which is Lutron Magic radio RF communication between all the
What they use,
components.
Zigbee?
No, it's is my understanding it's something completely proprietary to to
Oh,
Lutron for their
okay.
communication. Right, so there's that little bit of a black box, but they can deal with that, and all of my lights
Yeah.
should just work.
Right at that point, it's probably a low wavelength frequency that
Mhm.
penetrates well.
Mhm.
That's all you care about. It's not interfering with anything.
Mhm.
Which, which yes, I mean we've talked about it before. If you're going to go with HomeKit or something like that and Wi-Fi, you need good Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
And so many problems break down to I've got that one default cable modem combo Wi-Fi router in the corner of my house where the cable comes in, and why does my HomeKit not work?
Mhm.
Well, you know, browsing YouTube doesn't need latency,
Right.
So uh, that's what's funny is you being a not an iOS home, Matt. You
Mhm.
theoretically could completely operate leveraging HomeKit on the back end
Mhm.
for all your things, and they would just show up as devices if you interface with HomeKit. Now, what or Home Assistant? What I don't do, I don't use the Home Assistant front end app much at all. I still what that then does is turns around and because it says, "Hey, I'm going to talk to you guys." And I'm your HomeKit controller. I'm going to then turn around and advertise those as HomeKit devices on your network. So you open the Apple Home app on your phone,
Mhm.
and it's all there, just
Okay.
like
Well,
they
see,
show up if you
you've
look
got
into
the
deep.
Apple device though. You've got the Apple iPhone and the right.
But I could. But even if I didn't, it'd be
Mhm.
fine,
Okay.
which is cool. Which is cool.
So I did a kind of similar thing. You can develop, you can deploy, create, define a switch, a Boolean state switch in Home Assistant.
Mm-hmm.
So I've defined a bunch of just soft switches that exist, and then climbed up that hill that is how do I use Node Red. And so now I'm using Home Assistant as my clearinghouse and Node Red for all my
Yep.
automation components.
Yes, exactly. There are a couple of devices, HomeKit devices that I have. They're Eve brand,
Mm-hmm.
and they use Bluetooth Low Energy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that right there is a HomeKit only device. Those actually pair with my HomePod or Apple TV, whatever the Apple Hub, which could be a number of things, your iPad, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because uh, my Home Assistant box has no means as a Bluetooth Low Energy radio. Right, there is no BLE base. So what I did was I set up that dummy switch mat,
Mm-hmm.
and on the Apple side, which I have no automations, I have two automations. I have two of those sensors. When that thing triggers, the automation is set that home assistant switch to mirror its status.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it keeps something in sync with it on the home assistant side if that changes, and Apple handles that automation.
Okay.
So when that's open or closed, it keeps the home assistant. Then home assistant can still act on it, even though it can't directly control it, and vice versa. If via home assistant it sees it close, it changes it on the Apple side. So it's pretty neat. It's a decent workaround. It works.
Yeah. Okay.
So Kris, what's your coolest automation? What is either and I like automated things more than interacting. I don't say Siri do this. I hate it. I hate it because that's more frustrating than not often. But I like when things happen based on environmental conditions.
Yeah.
That to me is the power of it. What do you got set up that you like over there that you're aspiring to do?
So the vast majority of my stuff is all voice controlled. So we have the Echo devices in every single room of the house. So for us, it's Echo device do this. So it's turn on this set of lights. So pretty basic stuff. But we never touch light switches to the point that no one actually knows which light switch does what. So let's see, cool things. I had a setup in my last place. So motion sensor in the upstairs hallway, and again, the Z-Wave smart dimmer switches everywhere. So kids get up in the middle of the night and have to go use the restroom. I don't want them hitting the light switch full brightness. Now they're wide awake, so they walk out, motion in the hallway, boom, lights come on, 10%, bathroom lights on, 10%. They go do
That's
their
awesome.
thing, and then no motion for 10 minutes. It all shuts off. So at the same time, send me an alert so I know downstairs watching a movie, and I get an alert. Kids are up. I can pause the movie, go find out what's going on. Um, so that was pretty neat. Had the Samsung Smart Things came with a proximity sensor, like a little key fob. And I, for the longest time, had no use case for it. Like, what on earth do I do with this? And then we got a babysitter that was, coming and going and doing all that. So I gave her the fob, and that basically allowed to override any of the proximity sensors that we had on our phones. So, when we got home, it would, turn lights on and off, that kind of thing. So by her having that fob, it would detect when she was there. It even, I had it logging.
Here, take this tracker on your person and carry it with you wherever you go.
Exactly.
Okay.
It was perfect.
Of putting some NFC tags up by the door so you can just take your phone and slide it on the door.
I think Chris's security cameras captured him laying under a car, putting a magnetic GPS device on it too.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to talk about that, but so the other cool bit about that, had it logging arrival and departure times into a Google Doc. So hey, here's the
pay by the 15-minute increments.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
You clocked in a minute late. I remember those days.
Yeah.
God, that's been a minute.
I like that. That's cool.
There you go.
My two favorites are the when I play Plex after a certain time of night, dusk, right? It remembers the state of all the lights in my area that affect the TV or room or whatever. I've got like little lights that are on either side of the TV that splash the wall on either side. That gives it I don't like pitch black room, watch bright TV, like an OLED HDR TV is too bright. So I like a little warm light on the back. So when I play something in Plex, it'll bring those lights down. It'll shut everything else behind me off. And then when I hit pause or it stops, that returns itself to that state. That's a cool one. And then and that works flawlessly every time. That's actually triggered via Tautuli, which is Plex's monitor and analytics thing, and that uses webhooks to call something. Also, I use an app on my phone called Locative. It's free.
Is that for your geofencing?
It allows you to set a geofence and multiple geofences, and then trigger a enter or leave HTTP post or GET or whatever. And I've got a listener on the Home Assistant side that listens to, so it knows whether my wife or I or both of us or neither of us are home. And then I can create those Boolean switches, Matt. Somebody home, nobody home. Based on the time of day, time of year, it will lock our door, kill all the lights, etc.
That's one of the ones I'm trying to set up right now, and
it's great.
Well, Node-RED's got a location node for Home Assistant, and I was trying to make that work, and I couldn't get the right data out of that.
That's pulling it from your Home Assistant app on the phone, which I find not great. So it's not going to be as
Sure. I mean, it's all the same GPS signal though on the phone, and it's what does it report to and how often does it pull, right? Regardless of the app you use, that's going to be the thing.
Yes.
Really, my question though is, you're not doing the and statement or the or statement of I'm home and she's home, you're home or she's home. You're not doing that in Node-RED. You're doing that somewhere else to set.
So each of us have our own person object with its status, and then there is a somebody home, which is an or of the two.
Okay.
And so if that is false, then nobody's home. If it's true, someone's home.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Like I said, Maddie, I'll show you the Node-REDs. Have you learned how to do copying entire flows?
I saw that, but it was
it's a JSON dump.
It is. I saw that, and that's my thing. I didn't find it to be as easy as Control C, Control V. It was.
Well, you can do that with little node objects. You should be able to.
Copy in, copy.
And
export
what's
out,
nice
import
is
in, that kind of thing.
That JSON strips any sensitive stuff too, which is very cool right off the bat. So you'll have to enter in your HA stuff and all that, but I'll send you some stuff like that.
Okay.
That's cool. And this only really applies to the summer. I have AC, but it's weird, during the winter, the house might say it's 70 degrees, but 70 feels a hell of a lot colder on a 30-degree morning than a 45-degree morning in the house. It's weird. It's like the house temperature says it's what it is.
Yep.
So to that same effect, in the summertime, I find that my AC works if you let the house get too hot, it takes forever to knock it down. But if you stay ahead of it and start knocking it down or prevent it from getting too high, it's better, right? So based on the forecast high for that day, and then a calculated what does it feel like, it will start at 7 o'clock, and it'll say, okay, based on a temperature now versus what it was forecast at, I have an idea how much, so it does a little formula, and then it'll drop the temperature a couple degrees.
So the AC
you're
doing that all through your automation. You don't have your AC plugged into like your Ecobee or anything and letting that drive it.
This is telling the Ecobee what to set it.
Okay.
Yes.
I feel like that's something that they should do natively because they've got the weather integrated with it.
I've never found that kind of intelligence to be great. I know Nest was ahead of the game on that for sure. But yeah. So and then at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, it steps down. It doesn't just turn on at 7 because I don't want it cold at 7 where I gonna want it but I'm gonna start getting in that direction without freezing us out until we're in bed when we do like it colder. So it's a formula that's pretty neat. So I like that one too.
That'll be cool.
So this is Node Red, Kris. This is all stuff that maybe the Samsung can do it, but Node Red is really just wire diagram programming, and then the Node
programming language with it.
The Node things are the powerful ones. You can add them from a community repo, and chances are you can talk to it. And even if you can't, you add the device and Home Assistant at the very least, because I don't use Node-RED to talk directly to the device APIs, Matt. I set them up in Home Assistant, and then I control the Home Assistant with whatever services Home Assistant advertises, which typically is everything that smart device can do.
There's so much it presents to you. That's I plug this thing in, and I'm like, holy crap, I could have triggers on this switch based on the firmware version of this one can do that one can't. There's a whole lot that's exposed. I got a fun one. One of the early ones I set up. Was actually a alarm clock for the main light in the bedroom, so I can set the timer and set does it turn on the weekends, does it turn on the weekdays, and it brings it up to 3% and then 6%. The ceiling lights are kind of bright, so it jumps pretty quick, and you only get 3 or 4 steps before the whole lights are on in the office.
You got 100 percentage points, but there are not that many levels on the light.
No.
Yeah.
Yep. So setting that up was kind of fun. That was Google it, find it.
I still got my Hue bulbs kicking around at a few places. 2 of them being our side bedroom lamps. So if I turn on the overhead lights at night after dusk, the lamps also go on. So then you shut the lights off, the lamps stay on, so you don't walk into the black bedroom and trip and stub your toe. And then of course I told you I've got those Amazon Dash buttons repurposed on the side of either side of our bed. And instead of saying, hey, SIRI, good night, and have her scream back at me, I'm shutting everything off and waking you up at the same time. Aren't you happy with my capabilities? Instead of doing that, I just roll over, I press the button. It triggers one of those Boolean switches, Matt. Yeah. That triggers the scene to go, boo, and everything goes down.
So you're using Siri. Kris is using Alexa. I'm plugged into the Google stuff because I've got a couple of devices. But truly, for the audio piece and the voice assistant component of that, I'm looking at what can I roll my own? What can I run natively in my environment without having to reach out to the web, right? Because hey, your internet's down, that doesn't work.
You can't. As far as I know, because that natural language learning is so robust,
so much CPU,
and always evolving too, always updating, hopefully getting better. Google has an API for that.
I think I've seen some others. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I've seen some others that have a support for that, and that's what I've gathered is that it's there's a lot that goes into that, and we aren't quite there yet for run this language assistant locally.
Because I have Siri and Home Assistant exposes all my devices as HomeKit devices, and therefore I can control. Does Google not give you that option? Does Home Assistant does not have a built-in one then?
So they do. There is, right? You can integrate Home Assistant with the Google. You can integrate it with Alexa. You can integrate it with Siri. But
You can integrate it with Siri.
you've got the HomeKit integration component there, so that
Correct. It
Right.
advertises HomeKit devices. It does nothing with Siri.
right there's
Just to be clear.
okay. So there's I mean it's the same kind of thing. I can expose components to Google and talk to
Right.
Google
And Alexa
set
sees it.
up an automation, and it sees it and it triggers it and kicks it off. But there
That's
isn't
cool.
a function to do, let me put a microphone in the skull and some little light up LED lights and have a talking
I've
skull
got you.
sitting on the shelf, right? That's really what I'm looking at, is like I want that so that I don't have to rely on the whoever.
An Echo device.
Yeah.
And internet.
And internet.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be the rub. I mean, even Siri breaks if the internet's down.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I use it very little. What I found a lot of times, I mean, I have the Apple Watch, but I have my phone. I just hold the side button and talk into it.
Mhm.
That's like the most reliable way to control, and I can whisper.
It's the one that's always there with you.
Yeah,
You don't have
the
to yell
HomePods.
across
I
the
really
room.
I love the HomePods, but voice recognition across it's always going to be 95% of the way there.
Mhm.
I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So I get similar to your Echo button. I grabbed the Lutron's got a little table stand that you can slide the Pico remotes into. So for the office, I set up a notification. You can actually see each one of the individual buttons through Node-RED, through Home Assistant. So
That's cool.
if it's this button on there, do this. Otherwise, just treat it as normal. So I can.
I mean, you got so many options on one little device.
Tie the fan
Apparently,
together.
IKEA's got a platform called Tradfree,
Mm-hmm.
and they're selling now little buttons. You can put your own little icon on them, and they're like I have single-use buttons, and I think they take a single or a double tap.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're like $5.
Mm-hmm.
That's attractive to me.
That one and the
check it
What
out.
kind of protocol are they using?
I think they have a hub. I think you get the
They do have a hub.
Yeah. So it kind of the same thing. It talks to the hub, and then you integrate with the hub. I was actually looking at them for blinds because they're the cheapest ones of the blinds that I found. So
if I ever build a house, I will be running 110 to the top of all my main windows. The windows that I want. We have 3
And
big picture
sensors.
windows in the front of the house.
Yeah.
And so yes, I would be running 110 up to those casings if I built a new house at this point, because I would love automated blinds based on light. Right, you say the sensors right there, and I can have it. It'd be great. It's just retro-wise, it's almost impossible. Do you want to run cables and plugs to the wall wart for 3 big windows in the front? It's a non-starter.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
where are you at, Kris? Are you at in your new house? Do you feel as dialed in as you did at the old one?
No.
not yet.
Okay.
Not
No,
yet.
we're
Are you gonna
no
get there?
no. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll exceed it. I just don't know yet.
I wish I could get Ivoxy to put up a home automation 2-day, 3-day class.
Ooh, that'd
I'd
be
love to do it.
fun.
But it would be fun.
Yeah.
It would be
You
fun.
can,
Well,
you can
write
write
in,
the
write
curriculum
it,
for
write us.
that.
Yeah.
I could do that. Yeah, write us at podcast@ivoxy.com if you want to make that happen. Who knows if we get the groundswell?
There you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That'd be
we'd have no
fun.
choice.
If you've got a,
Yeah.
you know what? If you've got a option for local voice assistant, send that in, because I've been searching. Something you've tried, something that's worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. And it's good to know if I need to ever know what's going on in the Kris Lamet household. I can just get a job at Amazon and listen to everything that's going on there now with those in every room and all that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
GPS on the babysitter. I mean,
Drop on in.
Leon the professional over here.
Yeah.
We should rename it to be, hey FBI, can you turn the lights on in the kitchen?
Like your Wi-Fi network, FBI surveillance van.
There you go.
Cool. Well, I think that's probably enough for this episode. I mean, this obviously, as you can tell, the listeners, that we could go on about this for forever and ever. I feel like we had a nice list of things to talk about, and we got to roughly 10% of it. Sorry, Kris.
Oh yeah.
But that just means we have to have you on again, which is awesome, because
Let's do
it's
Oh,
it.
always a good time to get the 3 Muskebeards on here.
3 Muskebeards. I love it.
Well, there's short, medium, and long too. That's even better.
Yeah, there's also gray and me. It'll
That's
hit me
okay.
all
I
at
don't
once,
use
I'm
product in my beard, so.
Did I say? Are you intimating that I do?
I think I see some gray up there on the bottom lip there.
It's the light. It's the light. It's
Uh-huh.
reflecting
Sure.
off my monitor. Well, thanks everybody for listening, for joining us. Kris, thank you for joining us. We got to have you back on soon, sooner than the last gap. And as always, Mr. Koz, good to see you too.
You too.
Thanks
guys.
everyone for listening. Have a great day.